Hey everybody, how y'all doing? Everybody's like, you've been quiet, what you been doing? I've been reading Proverbs, I've been praying, and I've been doing some research. I will say that I got on TikTok and I went down the TikTok rabbit hole of relationships and listening to how people feel about relationships and listening to people's heartbreak. And so, with all the stories, I've heard very few stories. And I started asking men this question. They'll be like, oh, I had a woman and she broke my heart and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, did you do something before she broke your heart? And normally, the ones who got their heart broken, they were in high school. Okay, they were very, very young men in high school. So that's when they got their heart broken. But then when they talk about in adulthood, and I'll say, well, hey, did you have, you know, were you sneaking around communicating with somebody? Were you flirting? Were you? And they would admit that, yeah, but that don't give rise to what she did. So instead of me joining in on the the gender war and the male bashing, I decided to understand the man. I have five sons. I have a dad. My daddy was like the great, no offense to daddies on here, but my daddy was the greatest daddy ever. And so I was trying to figure out, like, how could you be the greatest man ever? And then, after your divorce, after you lost your wife and children, you're an amazing man, but you cheated on your wife. And so, in an effort to understand the pain of, you know, in an effort to understand the men and validate the pain of the women, I said, let's take a scientific approach to this. Because I'm up here at UMKC's library right now, because this is where I've been coming to do this research. A lot of people have been like, you've been real quiet. You've been real quiet. Well, first off, I'm looking for a job. Y'all take the low paying trucking jobs, because I retired from trucking. And yeah, it ain't the fact that I don't get paid. Well, it's the fact that don't nobody want to hire you when they look at how much money you used to make in trucking. So, not saying take the low paying jobs, but I'm just saying, or start investing your money to where you never have to go through what I'm going through. So, anyways, um, I began to research cheating from a biological standpoint. Oh my gosh, I just learned so much about men that I did not know. I now see why men say a woman cannot raise a man. I stand behind that sentiment 1,000,000%. A woman cannot raise a man because we do not understand biologically what they are going through. Let me explain this to you. So, and these are just things that I found in studies and books that I've been reading. Um, the testosterone is the fuel center of the sex drive. Now, I think we all pretty much know that, but I didn't realize how deep it goes. So the testosterone is the primary male sex hormone. So testosterone equals lust. A lot of people don't know that. But when they talk about lust, they're talking about testosterone. Keep listening, keep listening. Share this with people, because I want women to understand, and some men don't understand. You deal with this, but you don't understand why you deal with it, and you think something's wrong with you. I'm about to show you nothing's wrong with you. Testosterone is the primary male sex hormone. Males typically have 7 to 8 times more testosterone than females. I'm a testosterone heavy woman, so I can understand like the really high sex drive on men, because I'm a testosterone heavy female. Read between the lines. So when you say something like 7 to 8 times mine, that's insane. So that means your brain cannot function on a daily task without thinking about it, because I know how much I think about it. So that means literally a man's brain. Some women don't have high testosterone. I'm a hairy woman. So I've had high testosterone since I was a young girl, very hairy in my childhood pictures, like little kid pictures. So I understand, um, the sexual thoughts and things of that nature. Some of that stuff is induced by certain behaviors that happen to people, but some of that stuff is natural. So first off, it says Males typically have 7 to 8 times more testosterone than females. I'm going to read that again. Males typically have 7 to 8 times more testosterone than females. Now let's go backwards. Testosterone is the primary male sex hormone, but males have 7 to 8 times more testosterone than females. Keep listening. Don't share this live. Share it. Y'all share it. Okay, high testosterone correlates directly with increased sexual desire, spontaneous arousal, and visual attention to sexual cues. Now, we all know sexual desire goes with testosterone. We all know spontaneous arousal. That's why they say men are visual. Visual attention to sexual cues. So, let me keep going. I'm gonna expand on this section when I'm done. Let me keep going because I'm about to blow everybody away with this one. Hopefully. Once again, testosterone is the primary male sex hormone. Males typically have 7 to 8 more times testosterone than females. High testosterone correlates directly with increased sexual desire, spontaneous arousal, and visual attention to sexual cues. This last one, oh y'all. Even in utero, testosterone organizes the male brain for higher sexual responsiveness. Y'all, the dang on fetuses be suffering with lust. The baby in your womb, their brain has been organized for higher sexual response. Poor men, y'all just ain't, y'all can't catch a break. So, I'm just saying this on live, y'all. We just gonna be, if my husband get caught cheating, we just gonna be Will and Jada. I love him a lot, but I already know. I get it. I get it. I get the fetuses, your babies that come out of your womb, their brain is already organized for a higher sexual response. The damn fetuses, y'all. Not damn. God, let those words fall null and void. Let those words fall null and void and bear no fruit. But it's cuss worthy. Because this is scientific. I'm sitting up here. For people who don't believe me, hold on. I'm going to show y'all where I'm at. I'm on the campus of UMKC. I'm at the UMKC library. So y'all know I'm not lying. And these are things that I've been researching. And when are you serious? Like y'all, so men can't catch a break when it comes to lust. Men cannot catch a break when it comes to sexual desire. That's the reason why they're trying to create microchips. But I think the microchips might turn off something in the brain. But like y'all are hearing it from me first. My husband get caught cheating. We would just be Will and Jada because I know if I leave him, I'm going to go get another man who's going to cheat because every man done cheated. So they just didn't know why they cheated. I now know why they cheated. Anyways, so the effects of, the testosterone on the brain areas, the effects of, because the testosterone is the fuel of the sex drive. The effects on the brain area, the hypothalamus, specifically the medial preoptic area or MPOA, which is critical for initiating sexual behavior. The amygdala processes emotional and sexual stimuli. And it says males tend to have a stronger amygdala response to visual sexual cues. I'm going to read that again. The amygdala processes emotional and sexual stimuli. And then it says males tend to have a stronger amygdala response to visual sexual cues. So we as women, a lot of women, I really didn't care. I'm really not the kind that cares if my man looks at another woman, because just don't touch, because I will spot a good looking man long before he ever knows I've been looking at that man. Me and that man to make eye contact and everything. Trust me. So I don't judge men for that. Just don't touch. But for the women who do, their amygdala, they have a stronger amygdala response to visual sexual cues. And when you come to the US, the other countries, I have so many foreign friends, not foreign, they call me foreign in Ghana, but so many immigrant friends from trucking who are like, man, this is like Sodom and Gomorrah over here. You know, that's what they called us. They were like, it's like Sodom and Gomorrah over here. The women over here are not modest at all. And so it does something to the brain. So then we're going to go to the nucleus accumbens and regional tegmental area. No, ventral tegmental area, VTA. So nucleus accumbens, and ventral tegmental area, VTA. These are involved in the dopamine release, the brain's reward system. So I'm going to take you back. We're talking about how testosterone is equal to lust. I'm going to take you back. It says even in utero, testosterone organizes the male brain for higher sexual responsiveness. Even in utero, the fetus, y'all, the fetus that the mother is carrying, his brain is being formed and organized for higher sexual responsiveness. And we're talking about XY males. We're not talking about XX males, the ones who have the XX chromosomes, but then decided that they wanted to be a man. We're talking about biologically XY males. This is the difference between males and females. So let's go ahead. So I just talked to y'all about the effects on the brain. So then, because the brain was structured in that way in utero, then the brain tends to give itself reward pathways, is what it's called, which means that the male's brain is more visually wired for sex. So for those who suffer from the viewing of pornography, you're now about to understand why it's so hard to stop. Here we go. Y'all share this live. Hopefully this helps someone. And I didn't put my name up here, but everybody knows it's me, Lyne't. Anyways, males have a more active visual cortex when exposed to sexual stimuli. So this is why, you know, I now see why they said don't let your kids watch Disney movies, because they're kissing. And when I was little, kissing was considered sex. And I'm pretty sure it's still considered sex, because if you see two little kids kissing, everybody gonna have to be like, hey, stop that. So, you know, they have kissing in Disney movies and in certain movies. And, you know, they don't. In Ghana, I watch movies, and if people are showing interest in each other, they get close and they hug. That's on the Indian and channels and things like that. They get close and they hug. They don't lock lips, even on the cheek. They don't do any of that. They just get close and hug. So males have a more active visual cortex when exposed to sexual stimuli. They are neurologically primed to read or to react to visual novelty and variety. Hold on. I need to expand this because my grandma eyes. So it says they are neurologically primed to react to visual novelty and variety, which increases dopamine surges in the reward system. So once again, even in utero, testosterone organizes the male brain for higher sexual responsiveness. I'm going to keep repeating this for everyone, men and women, to understand this one thing. Their brain is wired for higher sexual responsiveness. Their testosterone is lust. So if you want a man that has testosterone, but you don't want a man who has lust, I don't think you want an XY man, one who has XY chromosomes. You got to understand this. Now, discipline. You got to have discipline in everything in life, or else you'll wind up like Diddy and R. Kelly. So, and the people from the movies, all of them, and Epstein and them, they didn't have discipline in dealing with their lust. Testosterone is lust. I don't care what nobody says. It's the lust hormone. Okay, so like I said, even in utero, testosterone organizes the male brain for higher sexual responsiveness. The male brain structure and reward pathways, they give a stronger reward loop activation. So when exposed to sexual cues, the dopaminergic, I think it's dopaminergic, wanting pathway in males lights up intensely. The dopaminergic, the wanting pathways in males lights up intensely. And it encourages repetition of the behavior that caused the dopamine spike. So if a man is using adult content to give himself a dopamine spike, his brain is going to reward that spike if he keeps doing it, if he loops it, if he keeps doing it. If he gets a dopamine spike from texting another woman about sexual stuff, if he gets a dopamine spike from actual physical sexual contact, these are things that his brain has a stronger reward if he keeps doing it. Like every time he gets more and more and more and more, he gets more and more reward each time. So it's like an addict chasing a high. But remember, y'all have to remember, I'm going to keep bringing y'all back to this. Even in utero, testosterone organizes the male brain for higher sexual responsiveness. So his brain is already formed, organized for higher sexual responsiveness. So then when he's exposed to sexual cues, that's the thing about it. A man has to identify his own sexual cues, whether you're homosexual or heterosexual or everything in between. You have to identify your own sexual cues in order to discipline yourself, because you don't want to wind up going to jail for something that you could have controlled your lust. You don't want to. Then the lower activity in inhibitor control regions. So what that means is, because of the testosterone, they don't have as much activity in the regions that would control the impulsiveness. So the prefrontal cortex, the PFC, which is responsible for executive functions, planning, and impulsive control, men have lower activity in that. I'm going to say that again. The prefrontal cortex, the PFC, which is responsible for executive functions, the presidency, planning, just look at your governments, and impulse control. Men have lower activity in inhibiting control and controlling. Okay, so in sexually aroused states or mind states in a man, not physical states like Missouri, but in hold on, I gotta let this group get through. They're doing tours for the college right now, so they got a whole group of kids who come through the library and tour the library and see the library. It's really neat. But so it says, in sexually aroused states, men often experience dampened prefrontal cortex activity, which makes them less able to make rational decisions or resist urges in the moment. Let's go back and read this again. In sexually aroused states, when they're sexually aroused, men often experience dampened prefrontal cortex activity, which means when you damper something, you put it out. When we damper a candle, the candle goes out. So they don't even have lower activity. They have no ability to make executive decisions, to plan, and to control their impulses, which makes them less able to make rational decisions or resist urges in the moment. Hence, so many good men get caught cheating. Hence, so many good men, I'm seeing it a lot. The men are just losing their dang mind and getting rid of good women for women who are gonna take all their money and leave them broke, busted, and disgusted. I'm not understanding, but I understand it now. I truly understand it now. So now we're going to go to, this is the psychology side. I was just talking about the biology side, but here's the psychology side. And I am in no way a doctor or any of that. This is just the information that I was finding. The reproductive strategy, which we all heard. We've heard this. And this is psychology. This is not biology. Remember, biology is, you can almost prove it as fact until somebody else comes and disproves it. Psychology is more of people's observation of your behaviors and the behaviors of others over time. And then they put it in writing and said, this is this. This is why people act like this. Okay. Psychoanalyze people and then put it in a book. Evolutionary, males could impregnate more females, had higher chance of genetic legacy. The male brain evolved to seek variety, quantity, and opportunity, not necessarily emotional attachment. And this is psychology, the drive to reproduce. Lust served as a biological function to maximize reproduction, even if it wasn't consciously intended. And it's called the Coolidge effect. The Coolidge effect shows that male animals, including humans, become sexually rearoused when introduced to a novel sex partner. A novel means ideal. The man, his ideal woman, he instantly. This triggers a new dopamine burst, even if they were previously sexually satisfied. So what it's saying is a man can have sex with his wife or his girlfriend or his woman. And a woman who is his ideal woman or who he wishes he could get a hold of, if she gave him attention, he's instantly aroused. Or she sent him a picture, she contacted him on social media, any of that, he's instantly aroused again, even if he just emptied himself, even if he just cleared all of everything using sex. The social conditioning and neuroplasticity. So here's the issue with the men in America, especially, I won't just say men in America, I will say the men heavily on the African continent and the black men in America. Social conditioning and neuroplasticity. When I was doing this study, and I just took a little bit from each, but when I was doing this study, I just kept saying, oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. That makes sense. And so when I read this, it's going to make sense. Now I'm going to go back to the one that I keep going back to, which is testosterone is the fuel of sex drive. And even in utero, in the womb, testosterone organizes the male brain for higher sexual responsiveness. Remember that, even in the womb, in utero, in the womb. Social conditioning and neuroplasticity, sexual reinforcement pathways. In adolescence, males often pair sexual pleasure with specific stimuli. Now, the adolescent young male is the only one who knows what stimulates him sexually. The brain learns patterns through repetition. When lust becomes a habit, it forms entrenched neural pathways. Let's read that again. It's called sexual reinforcement pathways. In adolescence, males often pair sexual pleasure with specific stimuli. Every man's stimuli is different. Every single one. No one man has the same stimuli. The brain learns patterns through repetition. When lust becomes a habit, which means when uncontrolled lust, when undisciplined lustful activities become a habit, it forms entrenched neural pathways, which means they are basically sticking. They're not going anywhere. When you dig a trench, you getting down deep in there. And that trench is going to do exactly what it's dug to do. So it forms entrenched neural pathways. Um, and psychologically, men get less early training in emotional regulation. That's psychological. Males are often taught to suppress emotion, but not how to regulate desire. Here's the issue, y'all. Here's the issue. Herein lies the issue. We teach girls how to regulate desire. We teach girls, you're not supposed to be out here sleeping with a whole bunch of men. You're not supposed to be doing this, that, and the other. Don't dress like this. Don't look like this. But we do not teach men. We women have desires. We do. And I think our desires, I don't think they're greater than men's, but I think we got a whole lot of them. And we teach girls how to regulate their desire. We don't teach males. We teach females, we don't teach males. Without the tools to understand or manage urges, many develop an automatic, compulsive response to sexual triggers. Here goes the cheating. And cheating isn't just having sex with someone. Cheating is anything you got to hide from the person you love. So if you got books, if you got movies, if you got magazines, if you watch it on your phone and then you hope to hide it, anything you have to hide, if you've communicated with someone, if someone has sent you pictures, anything that you hide, that is cheating. And without the tools to understand, manage, or regulate sexual urges and desires, many males develop an automatic, compulsive response to sexual triggers. I'm going to keep going, y'all. Y'all need to share this video because I'm cooking, as my son says. I'm cooking today. I'm cooking. So I really needed to know this. This is because, like, being on TikTok, y'all, it'll make you have issues that you ain't got. But it hurt my feelings when that one lady was like, can't no man ever be faithful. This, that, and the other. Y'all don't realize can't no man. And she was speaking from a place of, she was a psychiatrist or psychologist or sociologist, or I don't know. She was some ologist. And she was speaking from the mental study. And so I said, okay, so we need to go in and look at the biological study of the thing. We can mix the mental with the biological and see how it works. And so that's what I'm doing. And it has truly helped me understand men. And like I said, listen, after reading this, my husband get caught. Listen, we just Will and Jada. I see why Jada was like, I'm going to let him do what he want to do. And then I'm going to be out here doing what I want to do. I see why she did that, because she has a good man. She has a great man, but he just has no control over his sexual urges. Okay. So it says, and we women will be like, oh, well, if I can be disciplined about it, he can too. So we women will feel like he should be disciplined because we're allowed to be disciplined. I'm going to go back once again, and I'm going to read y'all what science says. It says testosterone is the fuel of the sexual drive. And it says even in utero, testosterone organizes the male brain for higher sexual responsiveness. In utero means in the womb. So testosterone forms, it says organized, but that's another word for forms the male brain for higher sexual responsiveness. Y'all share this because hopefully this will help a lot of relationships. And hopefully this will help some men who actually want to heal. It will help them heal, or it'll help them become disciplined. So now let's get on the discipline subject, because we've done a lot of talking about, just why things are the way they are. But let's get on why discipline is so hard for some males. I know one out of all the men I know one man who is truly, truly disciplined. But this man fasts probably once a month, reads his word all the time, meditates like he is so close to God. And he said that he struggles with lust. I can't wait to share this study with him so he'll understand that what he's doing, he can keep going and he'll know that it's working. So anyways, why discipline is so hard for some males. Imbalance between drive and control. The limbic system the desires, overpowers the prefrontal cortex, which is self-control. And remember, I said when it comes to the prefrontal cortex, um, that's responsible for executive functions, planning, and impulse control. But in sexually aroused states in males, they often experience dampened PFC activity, making them less able to make rational decisions or resist urges in the moment. So now we go back down to why discipline is so hard. And it says because the limbic system, which is the desire, overpowers the prefrontal cortex, which is self-control, especially when arousal is high. The dopamine spike shut down rational thinking temporarily, leading to impulsivity. I'm going to read that again. Imbalance between drive and control. The limbic system, which controls your desires, overpowers the prefrontal cortex, overpowers the self-control, especially in high arousal. The dopamine spikes actually shut down rational thinking temporarily, leading to impulsivity. So what happens there? There becomes addictive feedback loops. Repeated indulgence in lustful behavior, especially, intimacy with people, adult content and intimacy with people, just lustful behavior of any kind, texting, sending photos, conversations, actual physical contact, watching stuff, looking in magazines, stuff like that. It creates a neurochemical addiction loop, which means when you see the word loop in science, that means do it again and do it again. So a neurochemical addiction loop, the cue is the craving. Then you go to dopamine, you get the dopamine, which gives you the pleasure. The reward is the memory, and you repeat the behavior. Cue, craving, dopamine, pleasure, reward, memory, repeat the behavior. The loop trains the brain to seek relief in lust when stressed, when bored, or when emotionally empty. We're going to sit with that one for a minute. So, their brain self-control has been shut down. Their prefrontal cortex is not working. The limbic system has taken over. And the neurochemical addiction loop has kicked in. The cue for craving, the cue or the craving, the dopamine, which is the pleasure, the reward, which is the memory of doing such, and then the repeat behavior. And it trains the brain to do this stuff when they stressed out, not go work out, not go eat, not go for lust to come through first. The brain has been trained for lust to come through first. When stressed, bored, or emotionally empty. Delayed gratification is harder for XY brains. And this is why men have to work harder at meditation, at fasting, and I tell people all the time, and I've always said this in my teachings, that the rules of the Bible were put in place for people who can't control their impulses in their brain. Everybody doesn't have to do that, but the rules are put in place for those people. And now that I'm looking at, I always tell people the Bible is the greatest science book ever written. But now that I'm reading this and I'm realizing this is biologically, they are having issues with lust. Biologically. I'm going to go back for those who just joined. And it says, I'm going to go back all the way to the top. Testosterone is the fuel of the sex drive. And even in utero, testosterone forms or organizes. It says organizes the male brain for higher sexual responsiveness. So I just did a whole thing on, the whole biology of it. So y'all can rewind this video and go back and watch. But the addictive feedback loops, the neurochemical addiction loop, It trains the brain to seek relief in lust when stressed, bored, or emotionally empty. Delayed gratification is harder for XY brains. There are X people who claim to be men. And they're like, oh, well, if I can do it, I've heard them say, if I can do it, any man can do it. XX, you're not an XY. And this is why they say a woman cannot raise a man, because a XX can never understand being taken over with lust in the womb. Mentally, the brain is taken over with lust in the womb. So the male brain shows lower default connectivity when frontal and subcortical regions, between frontal and subcortical regions than females. Let's read this again. XY brains show lower default connectivity between frontal and subcortical regions than XX's. I'm going to let this sit with y'all for a minute. This makes impulse inhibition harder, especially in emotionally charged or sexually stimulating moments. So, why do good men cheat? Why do good men get caught cheating? Why do good men even let themselves get in that situation? I always say, if you're not a part of the solution, you're a part of the problem. So yes, I researched how men can get over this. But listen, it's going to take seriousness. It's going to take rewiring. Y'all saw where it says, hold on. The brain learns through repetition, and when lust becomes a habit, it forms entrenched neural pathways. Entrenched means deep. It's going to be hard to untrench a habit like this. It can be done. It takes to rewire or retrench the brain. Neuroplasticity. The brain can change its wiring with deliberate and consistent effort. Men who train in mindfulness, cognitive behavioral tools, sexual fasting, prayer, or meditation show improved control over their testosterone, aka their lust. I'm going to read that again. The brain can change its wiring with deliberate, consistent effort. Men who train in mindfulness, cognitive behavioral tools, sexual fasting, prayer or meditation, I say prayer and meditation, show improved control over lust. Prefrontal training, activities like goal setting, journaling, emotionally processing, prayer, and fasting strengthen the prefrontal cortex, increasing discipline. Women, our prefrontal cortex is more active. That's why we're more disciplined. Reduce dopamine sensitivity through abstinence. Here's the thing. You're gonna have to abstain from anything sexual. That's how you do it. You add fasting, prayer, process your emotions, meditation, and abstinence. I realize, since this is for the men, since y'all are formed in the womb to be like this, it's going to be hard to reset your brain. It really is. It's going to be very hard to reset your brain, because this is a fetus the brain was formed to this, but it can be done. It says fasting from lustful triggers allow dopamine receptors to reset. Over time, the urge weakens and men gain control over their choices. So, when you look at all of this, it makes final sense. It makes so much sense to me, because how strong is the U.S.? How many people do you know who actually fast? I know a lot of Christians who say they're Christians and all I do what Christ tells me to. Well, the first thing we ever saw Christ do was fast for 40 days and 40 nights. How many Christians have done that? I'll wait. But people claim to be Christians. So I now see why he had to fast for 40 days and 40 nights. He had to put that physical body into subjection. It makes a whole lot more sense now. He went into the wilderness and got away from everything, and he was able to rewire his brain to where he was still in human flesh. He was still God in flesh, but he was able to rewire his brain to be able to, he controlled the body and not the body and the impulses controlled him. I used to always say, God, why did you make Christ a man? Why did you make, cause men got issues for real. Like all you can think about is sex. Literally, your brain can't concentrate on anything else. Even in the middle of you concentrating on something else, your testosterone spikes and you might have a lustful, spontaneous situation happen. Them is issues. Those are the whole subscription that we women know nothing about. So now I no longer am angry when men say a woman cannot train a man to be a man, or cannot raise a boy to be a man. But looking at this, a whole bunch of men only raise boys to be males. The ones who claim to be men, they raise boys to be males because they don't raise them to have active control over their testosterone, aka their lust. They don't teach them to fast, like real fast, not little bit of fast, like no food, only water fast, and not for half the day. They don't teach that. They don't teach intense prayer and proper meditation and emotional regulation. They don't teach that. So most men don't even know how to teach a boy how to be a man. They don't teach what it takes to be disciplined and have control over that thing that's entrenched in your brain, how to rewire your brain. So it's not saying that the men are like immoral. But according to science, even in utero, even in the womb, they're wired for visual arousal and, to be rewarded for fulfilling that lust, for doing something that fulfills that lust, even in the womb. So you just got to retrain your brain, men. Hopefully this video helps somebody. I hope it does. Soon as I'm done with this, I'm going to take it down. I'm going to post it to my YouTube page. It's coming off of Facebook. So God just put that in my head. It's because they're going to take it down in 30 days anyway. So it's coming off of Facebook. As soon as it posts up to Facebook, I'm going to download the video and then I'm going to send it over to my YouTube page. And then I'll repost it here from my YouTube page for you all to watch, share, all of that from the YouTube page. This is really powerful. And for any woman, and this is for the women who say, I want to be in a relationship. I honestly, y'all, if I'd have known this from the get-go, like from my very first ever relationship, I would have never married ever in life. Ever. I would have had relationships and then moved on. I wouldn't have given birth to children, any of that, because the pain that comes with men who are not disciplined, who have not rewired their brains, it's not worth it. I would never look at my life and say, I'll do it again. I wouldn't. So hopefully this helps a young lady. I would have had like sexual relationships, but I'd have left him where he's at because I know that most men have not rewired their brains. So they're going to do something eventually that's going to hurt you. Maybe later than sooner, but it's going to happen. Like I said, I am going to stop this video, download it, put it on my YouTube, and then put it back on my channel. But for those who shared it, and then I'll highlight and tag everybody in the share that I put up here when I share it from my YouTube page. But yeah, this is all XY males. If you are an XX male, XX chromosome male, this does not apply to you. Yes, they add testosterone to your body, but it did not form your brain. Your brain was formed completely different. So that being said, I wish everybody love, joy, and peace. And yeah, I'm just kind of blown away. And I just wanted to share. I'm not done. As I told y'all, I'm here at the UMKC library, Miller Nichols Library. I'm not done with my research. I'm gonna go even more in depth in this. I'm gonna actually research. I was just looking for stuff, but I'm actually gonna start researching this. This will help so many marriages and so many relationships. And I think that this should be put in wedding vows. You do know that his brain was formed to fulfill his lustful pleasures. So do you still want to marry this man? That should be put in wedding vows. But I wish everybody love, joy, peace, and hopefully this helps y'all. Bye-bye.